What up, guys? Odie Bookshees here. On the last episode of Bookshees Build, we were working on my S13, my demo car, and we installed this sweet-ass quick change diff in here. So now we want to get the car running, and it's missing a fuel tank because the original fuel tank will not fit in here. I knew that I'm getting myself into this, but that's okay. It definitely need an upgrade in the fuel system anyway. We're running the factory fuel tank. It's super old. It's got debris in it. It's dented up. Here's the original hard lines that go to the front of the vehicle, and we're gonna probably reuse these in some way, shape, or form, probably trim them back a little bit further, or maybe nicely bend them in a way where we can get fittings onto here easily. So we obviously want to put the fuel cell in a location that allows us to still be able to utilize the quick change by pulling this cover off and be able to change gear sets. So in order to do that, I basically pulled it off. I put it up against these shafts because we need, in order to pull the cover all the way off and back down, it needs to clear the shafts. Then scribed a mark right on the floorboard of where we need the space. So the scribe marks signify that we need at least that much space in order to be able to remove this cover. We're using a Radium fuel cell, which is super safe. It's got a bladder inside of it that's SFI and FIA approved. So even if, worst case scenario, we back it into a wall or someone rear ends us, at least there's a bladder inside the fuel cell versus the stock tank. So if it gets crushed, if it gets dented, it will still keep the fuel in there. And that's always a nice, safer bet. Also, the Radium fuel cell has really cool internals inside of it. It's got a FCST, which means there's a surge tank in here. There's a lift pump and 3 high pressure pumps. The amount of power we're making in the S13 with the naturally aspirated LS3 is not going to require me to run all 3 high pressure pumps, but it's great to have spares already loaded in there. And also, I might just get a niche to put a Vortex supercharger on. If we do that, then we got the fuel system already loaded in here. Okay, got these bolts out. Simple as that. Look at that. That is awesome. All right, got the cell out of the cage. Let's grab this thing, take it over to the car. I'm thinking we're gonna put it somewhere right over here. I'm gonna cut the floorboard out. We're gonna recess this thing in where the factory spare tire used to be. Well, that did not take very long at all. It is amazing how fast you could cut up a car. So there's a big hole right here. That's where I want the fuel cell to sit. Go ahead and drop this Radium fuel cell cage in there and see how it fits. Cool. That is perfect. We're just gonna weld the actual cage to the floor here. Also back here. Here we're gonna have to do a little bit more work, but I enjoy sheet metal work like this. We're gonna enclose this. I got the Radium fuel cell cage tacked into the floor. It's looking good and it's home. Now I'm just trying to create a template here out of cardboard to close in the rest of those gaps. It's going really good. I think I'm happy with the way it's fitting, so I'm gonna go ahead and trace this template over to sheet metal and bend it up. So after making that cardboard template, test fitting it, making sure it's all good, I went ahead and traced it over some sheet metal. Got it cut out, bent up. Time to weld this thing back in the car. Got the sheet metal all welded in. Now everything's solid. The Radium cage is all the way welded in. So I did recess the fuel cell quite a bit because I was planning to cover it, and this allows me to run a piece of sheet metal basically flush with the floor all the way across the fuel cell, just as if we had a spare tire in there and a covering that just went flush right over it. So let's drop the fuel cell in there just to make sure everything fits, and let's go ahead and mock up the flat piece that I'm going to cover the whole thing up with so that the fuel cell is isolated from the driver compartment. Dropped in the fuel cell, it's looking good. Carlos went ahead and started on some of the wiring when I wasn't here, and it looks like that's all ready to go. We just got to plug in. I'm gonna go ahead and pop in 2 bulkheads right here so we could actually run the lines over there. for the fuel cell plumbing, we're going to use the factory hard lines here, but I went ahead and I cut the actual barbed end off of the hard line, so now we have just a nice clean tube to work with. And what we're going to do is we're going to run -6 to the hard line. The hard line is equivalent to like a -5, so we have to convert it over. So I got this fitting here from my buddies over at G&J Aircraft, and there's a compression sleeve, so that's going to slide right over the existing hard fuel line, and then we're going to put that -6 adapter right to the hard line. So I have one piece of the adapter already on the hard line. I have that little bronze sleeve right inside of it, and now you simply screw in the second part of the adapter that has a -6 male end on it. Tighten that down and it should be good. I want to cover this fuel cell up, get that squared away, and I made a cardboard template for this earlier, and I had Carlos trace it over some sheet metal and cut out this piece out of sheet metal. So let's go ahead and put that in and we'll see how it fits. So this sheet metal piece fits in here really good. I put the sheet metal in a break, get this edge to bend down a little bit so you have a better seal right here. Other than that, it's looking tidy. Little trick that I use is I place a washer in the corner so that way I have a nice distance off of the edges here, and then I use a punch to mark the very center, and then I do that to all the corners. Then it's a really quick and easy way to make sure that you have equal distance on each corner where you land the bolt, so that way it looks nice and symmetrical. So we're going to do that in all the corners here, and then drill holes, put riv nuts in, and this thing will be good. Okay, so all the fab work's done. Let's go ahead and dismantle the whole thing, plumb it, wire it, paint it, and put it all back together. After the cover is removed, what we have here is the actual fuel cell, and now you could easily get to all the plumbing. So let's start with the breather. That's got a check valve built into it, and it runs out here. Let me show you right underneath. There is the filter right there. So the breather goes and vents under the car away from the driver. The driver should never smell fuel. So that goes outside. We've got obviously the cap to fill. This is the pressure pumps. We're only using one for the amount of power we're making and the type of fuel we're running. One pressure pump is plenty. Here's the lift pump that actually lifts fuel from the fuel cell into the surge tank itself, and then the pump pressure out to the fuel rail, and the return coming back from the fuel rail, dumping back into the fuel cell. Super simple. This is a 0 to 90 ohm fuel level sender. It goes right to the actual dash that's mounted on the steering column, and the Holley EFI dash is programmed to read that signal and translate into a fuel level from full to empty. Wiring's super simple. It just comes out of a grommet and actually follows the same pathway that the factory wiring used to go through into the factory sending unit. This is where the factory sending used to be. We obviously covered it up and boxed in this area so that the fuel cell could sit nice and flush. Super stoked on this radium cage for the fuel cell. I made this job a whole lot easier because I literally just had to cut a hole in the floor and weld that sucker in, and it's good to go. So super stoked on the way that is. And here's a look at the fuel cell underneath the car. Plenty of clearance, looks great. And what's cool is that we got plenty of clearance for the quick change.